The pictures help. I'm saying it cynically because the pictures help, but I still didn't understand today's stuff.
Yeah, I didn't think I originally I looked, I didn't understand. Then I went over it. I think I understood it. Now we're gonna say it over, and who knows when you do it with the tzibur.
Well,
Sometimes
hopefully I'll get it the second time better than the first. The first I felt a little lost.
I do have to tell you, and you can't make this up. I walked outside my house today, and I hear a guy scream at me. And this guy, I came out, now I see him maybe Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. He screams my name. He comes walking. He's got a whole hock with his tenant, who the tenant put in his own fixtures and his own washing machines and dryers and ovens and the whole deal. And now he wants to take it back. He doesn't want to take it back. I said, seriously? I said, do you do daf yomi by any chance? Right? I said, because that big probably pays for you guys to learn yesterday's daf. Right? See what's included and what's not. It happens to be a rental. So it makes it even more. I think I hear it as I thought finally I get a Shiloh Choshen Mishpat that I have some familiarity with. And then they say it's a rental. It's like, oh gee, I have no idea how it works with a rental. Right.
A guy, I forgot we learned it this week also. Reb David Bender by Mincha today.
Yeah.
He got a call for a Shiloh today. A boy, somebody called him and it said, it's a Talmud in the yeshiva. It was in the yeshiva. Is it right for him and his wife to go jet skiing? So I said, it's this week's Daf Yomi in public, right? Was this past week, right?
Well, were they on the same jet ski or not on the same jet ski?
On the same jet ski. No, he was asking if it's appropriate or not. I mean, could he do it? Was it this week, the blot? Yeah, it was this week, yeah?
Yeah, it was. It was
Friday a couple blottings.
Friday or Shabbos.
Depends if he owns the jet ski, if he's renting it from somebody or somebody's lending it to him.
Yeah.
What's the shaila if you rent an apartment and it doesn't come with the appliances and you put them in? What's the shaila?
No, it came with them. This guy took them out, put them into the garage. Right now he's leaving. So he wants to charge the landlord for the what's it called, fixtures, whatever the Olam said yesterday's daf, the different right. He wants to charge the landlord. The landlord said, "What do you mean? You put it in? Whatever." Who asked him? How do I know? He says, "How do I know you didn't damage my ovens? You've been in my apartment for 4 years. How do I know? How do I know that the oven is even going to work? The old one, right?" Whatever, it was interesting.
Let him put it back in and see if it works. Then
whatever it is, whatever the tumult was, it was more gishmak. Hopefully, I'll remember it the next time it comes up in the daf, because meaning whatever the shiloh was a gishmak shiloh. It ended up being like every other choshen mishpat shiloh. He said, she said. And
Yaakov, you live in one family, and most, in my experience, most tenants are stupid and they become smart when they buy their own house. It's an amazing thing.
Yeah, right. It's a good point.
It's amazing. It's like a school to become smart, to buy your own house. You go from being an idiot to being smart just by buying a house.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. This guy claimed that this, whatever, he gets into the whole thing. He's really wealthy, yeah.
It's always the wealthy guys, make the biggest deal out of it.
Well, I don't know the guy. I didn't know the guy, so I didn't know the guy. I mean, if you really wanted to hear the Shiloh was interesting. He was supposed to leave in August 1st, but he said, "I'm having a baby. Can I stay for another month?" This landlord was raising the rent another $1,000 for the new tenant, which was fine. But he let this guy stay for August at the old price. So it was costing the landlord $1,000. But the landlord said, you know what? The people want to move in before September, before the school year. Like, at least leave Epis. So he was supposed to leave August 22nd. He pushed him off till August 27th. Right? So he's leaving today, whatever. That's tomorrow. Today, tomorrow. Fine. So then the landlord told the new tenant, just come in on the 27th or 28th. You don't have to pay rent. He said, you don't have to pay me rent. This guy the guy that stayed there for the extra month found out, and he says, "What do you mean? He should pay me rent? What are you giving away? What are you giving away 4 days rent on my cheshbon?"
This guy wears sitters at night, because he's very religious.
He is
He's very religious.
He was using so many Yiddish words, if I tell you. So finally, I told him, like, buddy, what are you fighting over here on? A couple of $100? You can't. You let a guy move into the house for a few days. What's the whatever? Then he started with the fixtures. He told the landlord, "What do you mean? I'll take my fixtures," and because I put them anywhere. You know how it goes. Punked. I walked outside.
Feel really bad for this baby.
Yeah. Whatever. Anyways, that was the Shiloh. So, but whatever. The main point was that how the fixtures work by rentals, I have no idea.
It made you miss camp pretty quickly.
Yes. There was plenty of Choshen Mishpat Shilohs in camp too, but it's one kid busting another kid's MP3 player or whatever it is. Yeah, easier stuff. Anyways, okay, so what do we get up to on the bottom of Samach Aleph on the base? Don't be so intimidated from all the pictures, Rabbi say. I don't believe it's so hard. Yeah, whatever. Let's see. We got up to.
Wait, now that you're back home, do you have the Lego models?
Very good. It's very good, Gershon. That's what we got up to. Right? Yeah. So a guy told his friend, I'm selling you the land of Chia. Right? Which was this land used to be owned by Reb Chia. I imagine if somebody bought land that was once owned by Reb Chia, that would be a chashuv azach, like the Babe Ruth shirt, right? That'd be a chashuv azach. Like Rabbi Perez told my father that Panovich Rav lived in your house when his kid,
everything of Reb Chaim's.
Right, exactly that thing. So you know that you're gonna sell. You're gonna use it as a selling point of your property. That Reb Chia once lived in this house, right? So that's what he said to him. He said, I'm selling you the land of Bechia. There were two lands that they said belonged to Reb Chia. So what did this guy mean to sell him both lands or only one? So Ravashi Chada Amale, Tarti Le Amale. He said, Ara de Bechia, which is a Lashon Yachid. So that was what he meant to sell him one land, not both. Yeah, so that was his psak. But if he had told him, Arate Stama, but if he would have said Arata, lands, plural, and he didn't say how many lands, Miyot Arata Shtaim. So as we know, anytime you have something plural, so we assume that it's using the minimum amount of plural, which is 2. So it must be, if he says a lashon arata, then it's 2. Bi amarle kol arata, and if he said all of lands, then kol arata de islay. That means he has to give him all the lands. Levar bimustanu pardisi, but not gardens and a pardis. Pardis, what are orchards or whatever orchards? Yeah, that meaning that because that's not considered land. That's different than land. Bi amarle, and if he said to him ziara. And if he said ziara is that's like a lashon, the Rashbam says that's a lashon that's used for all lands. Ziara afilu by bustani upardese, then even the gardens and the orchards, the varmi pati ba'avdi, except for the houses and avodim. Those are not called land. Land can mean a lot of things. Houses, it doesn't mean a house, and it doesn't mean an heaven. Talmud Aleph, but if he says, I'm selling you my nechasim, all my belongings, then even houses and slaves. So again, this is for lawyers, right? You have to know exactly what the terminology, what the hamoinam means when they say the different lands. Right? Fine. That's easy. Now here goes.
This is the equivalent. If you go like upstate, you see these big signs on the highway. 94 plus acres for sale. And then the next one says 76 acres of farmland for sale. So each one's slightly differently worded. That's the difference here.
Exactly, right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and Hanami, but and again, it's l'chayra, like we said yesterday, it's going to be based on location. Right? What was I thinking today? A lashon that people use. What was the lashon? Don't people say, "I'll see you back at the"? What do they say? Is there a phrase like that or something? I don't know.
Probably what?
Like when you say somebody, "I'll see you later," "I'll see you back at the
At
ranch."
the ranch?
See you back at the ranch. Right. So it may say if a guy says he's going to sell the ranch, but I'm saying people will use the ranch even though they don't have a ranch. It means a house. L'chayra.
I had this. I bought jewelry from somebody from a different state. She said there's a scratch on it. It's not visible to the naked eye. I said, fine, no problem. She ships them to me. Open it up, scratch on it. You could see it. I said, what do you mean? You said it's not. Can't see it. She said, no, I meant when you're wearing the earrings. If you can't see it if you're standing 5 feet, 3 feet away, 5 feet away. I said, oh, you didn't tell me that. So. That's the mamish this thing. You use one word and each person has their own cheshbon, what it means.
Sounds like you bought jewelry from an esrog salesman.
Yeah.
Fine. So anyway, so that's what the different lashonos. That's what they mean. Fine. So then now the Gemara starts with some interesting cases. Meitzer loy meitzer. If we learned in yesterday's daf that the seller has to describe, meaning they didn't have what's it called? Rachman always brings it up. The surveys. They didn't have surveys back. I mean, I guess they must have some form of survey, but you couldn't like put an address with the squared off. You had to describe. Let's say you're selling my mother's house. I'm sitting in my mother's house now. So if you're trying to describe it, so what would you say? You'd say, well, there's a house to the left, and there's a house to the right, and there's a house in the back, and she's in the middle. That's the house I'm selling to you, right? So what happens if on one side...
Now it's easy, mother. Just say the one that has parrots attached to a swimming pool.
I was just going to say, Tiago, you could just say now it's the one with the only pool in Frisco.
Yes, that's true. Or you could say noise. You could say noise on Frisco, too.
Right.
But so let's say that in the
happens, you make fun of my mother's house.
That's what happens. That's what happens. You lose connect. That's what happens. You lose connection.
As a choice, you must have to come with George Clooney, Rav Zilberstein, or with you, depending what you want.
Or Rabbi Stein giving shir in the dining
Aaron,
room.
I can't pause it, Aaron. I'm on a different computer. Made fun of your mother's house, yeah.
anyways, so those that know my mother's house, so on one side of her house, there's one neighbor that goes the entire length, right? Just like in a regular street. Rabban, you might have it also. On the side, you have multiple people bordering on you. Do you have that on the people on what's the name of that? Dinsmore?
Yeah.
Yichitzuk Street.
Yeah, there could be. It's the two people on border on that side.
Tiakov, I have.
You have.
I have 4 people.
No, I'm saying the Gemara's case here is that on one side you have one neighbor the entire length, And then the other side, you have multiple. My mother.
Right. So I have that. I have that. Nachum Katz next to me on one side. And then on the other side, I have Azi Zucker, Avrami Goodfriend, and Menachem Blau.
Oh, yeah, okay. So there you go. Exactly.
And behind you, no? Don't you have somebody behind you as well?
Right. I got Stefanski behind me too. Right.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't have that clear exactly. 1, 2, 3. So
Peretz, he has 4 swimming pools, not one like you.
I didn't want to rub it in, Rabban, but now that you mentioned it, that yes, we do.
Yeah, he's surrounded, right? He's surrounded by swimming pools. But anyway, so again, if you have on one side. Recording in progress. Hold on, I'm sorry, I'm switching. There you go.
Oh, special
You didn't
somebody
make fun
used
of
to be on
Jesse,
the
but
top.
Jesse turned blue.
First, now I'm what?
Before you made fun of your mother's house, you lost count. Now you didn't mention Jesse, but he turned blue.
Yeah. It's not me, just the lights on the boat. He had a little too much to drink. But yeah. Anyways.
That's also true.
So anyway, so basically some people, if you live near a corner and you have a different street, so like I'm just gonna go with my mother's example or our account, meaning one side is one neighbor going the length. On the other side, so my mother's property has 1, 2, 3. My mother has 3 neighbors on one. So basically you're trying to describe this property. So on one side, he says, I'm giving you the property, the length of this house. But on the other side, he doesn't describe all 3 houses. He describes only one of the houses. So now, did he mean, again, he says, I'm giving you this property. On the left side, it goes along this entire house. And on the right side, it goes along only 1/3 of the way. So what did he mean? What did he mean by this description? Did he mean to give him 1/3 of the land? Or did he mean to give him the whole land? If you look at the picture, to the right, you see it says Kotzer and Aruch, right? So he basically said he's giving the land, the Aruch part, and on one side he described the land going the entire width, and on the top part he only described half. So which one does he mean to give? Does he mean to give just that right square, or does he mean to give that entire square? Yeah, I think that's relatively straightforward. So Marav, like Kana Ela Keneged Kotzer, he only did the Kotzer part. The reason why he had to describe the entire length is because back then the minig was you don't do partial borders. You just say the entire border. But on the right side, when it was shorter, you only go with up until the border with each particular person. So let's say my mother's house has 3 houses, so he only meant to sell up until the line of the first house, not all 3. Oh, so why'd you say the other side so long? Because back then there was no formula to split up a boundary line. So that's what the Gemara is saying. So Rav was saying he only gets up to that half. Amr Rav Kana Rav Asi Rav. So Rav Kana Rav said to Rav, "V'yikne keneged roish tur." Why doesn't he go be kind of like the head of the line? A tur is a line, right? But meaning, look at the second picture in the Rashi. I'm assuming all Baruch has the same Rashis, right? The second picture in the Rashi says Reuven Shimon. So, meaning, why are you cutting it off in a straight line? If he gave the measurement on one end, let's say 100 feet, and he gave on the left side, he gave a measurement of 100 feet. On the right side, he gave a measurement of 50 feet. So Rav is saying all he gets is 50 feet, right? So Rav Kahana and Rav Asi is saying, no, why are you making it across? Make it on an angle, because he gave it on one end that far, and he gave it on this end halfway. So he meant that you're going to cut it as an angle. Why are you making him lose out on that angle? Right? Pretty straightforward. The question is pretty straightforward, right? Meaning, why are you saying that he cuts it off? Meaning, he gave on one side, let's say again, it's to make it simple. On the left side, he said the boundary is 100 feet long. On the right side, he said the boundary is 50. So Rav says all the guy gets is 50. He doesn't get 100. So Rav Kahana and Rav Asi are saying, no, he should get the diagonal from the end of the 50 till the end. That's why he gave 2 different measurements. right? Like it said, like Rashi shows in that picture. So Shasik Rav was quiet, which we're going to assume means that Rav was Maida. But it seems like that's the Maskonas Gemara.
The Tosus over here talks about where all the times Rav was quiet. He's masking, he's not masking.
We're going to see also later on in the daf. Right. So the Tosus on the first wide line discusses what does Rav mean when he was shaisik. Right. But then he said the Gemara continues and says Umayda Rav is Mayda Hechati Ika Meitza Ruvain V'Shimon Mechad Gisa. Right, where on one side it has Reuven and Shimon, who mates are Levi and Yehuda Mechad Gisa, and on the other side is Levi and Yehuda. Meaning, we were saying the case till now that on one side the entire length of the property is one neighbor, and on the other side there's 2 or 3 neighbors or whatever it is. But Rav is saying, but if let's say there were 2 neighbors on each side. The Reuven connected Levi, the Shimon connected Yehuda. But now he has a way to describe it. If he really meant to only give half the length, then he should have said, I'm giving you up until where Reuven's property goes, next to mine, opposite Levi, or Shimon's opposite Yehuda. He didn't say that. And he didn't do that except meaning on one side he said you're going to have Reuven and Shimon, and on the other side you're only getting to Levi. Right, so then there for sure it must mean that he goes on the diagonal. He was saying it opposite the Rosh Tor, meaning that means he meant to sell him the land on an angle. Right, so meaning what the Gemara is saying that Rav is Maida, which again the problem is that it sounds like Shasik Rav was quiet. I mean he's Maida to the whole din. Then the Gemara is saying Maida Rav, that Rav is Maida. What do you mean? He just said he agreed to the din, and now we're saying no. There's a case where for sure he agrees, right? Which is if you have 2 on each side, 2 neighbors on each side, and on one side the guy described the property boundary using both neighbors' names, and on the right side he only used one neighbor's name. So in that situation, why is he doing that? He must have had a good reason why he's doing it, and the reason is because he meant to give it on an angle. He meant to give half and then on an angle. If he's looking the second and the third drawings in the Rashi, he didn't mean to just give half. He meant to do the whole thing on an angle. Fine. Those are the first 2 cases. Then the third case here, Meitza Ruvain Mizrach Umayriv, who Meitza Shimon Tzavim V'Dorim. So this guy's property is boxed in. On the north and the south, Ruvain owns the property. And on the east and the west is how's it go? Yeah, Reuven was on the east and the west, I'm sorry, and Shimon was in the north and the south. So he's trying to sell the property in the middle there. So Tzarech Lemichtav Le, he needs to write in the shtar, Meitza Reuven Ruchin Train. I'm selling the property where Reuven owns on either side of the property. Who made to Shimon Ruchin Train, and Shimon owns both sides of the property. I'm selling you both of those. If he does that, then he's selling him the entire property. If he doesn't, then this here you already need the art school had a better picture for this one. What he meant to sell him is half squares of each one. Right? He has Reuven has lands on the east and west of this property. Shimon has property on the north and the south. So this property is totally surrounded. If he didn't say that he's selling the property on all 4 sides from each one of them, then he means to sell only half of each of his properties, meaning he's only selling half that's closer to each one, and the other half he's not. So Mamela, he's only selling half of the property that we would think that he's doing. Okay. Then the Gemara asks, so those are those 2 cases. The Gemara comes up with some interesting cases. Sayim loy es hakronos, if he marks off just the corners, meaning when he's describing the field, he just says there's one corner in the top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right. That's all he says. He doesn't say anything in between. So Mao, what's the din? What's the shaila? Maybe what the guy meant to sell is an X. Hence in the Rashi. Right? Maybe all the guy meant to sell is an X, a cross. Those black lines in the Rashi, I don't know which type of Gemara you have, but by him saying from corner to corner and corner to corner, all he meant to do, and I don't know why anybody would want to buy a field like that, but all he meant to do was to sell him just from one corner to the other corner, and that's it. I mean, two of them to make an X. Right? So what's the din? Is that meaning the Shiloh the Gemara is asking, was that Taka his kavanah? Next, a similar question, but giving a little bit more coverage of land. Kimin Gam is Gam is Greek. Right? So if you have Gam, Mao, what's the din there? Meaning there, Gam is like an L. So he didn't just say the corner. The first Shiloh in the Gemara is that he said the corners. This Shiloh is that he said both sides of the corner. So it's like an L shaped on both sides. So now does he mean to sell him at least the width of that area? It's wider than the X. Anton Bebe's now. Iserugin Ma'u. Let's say his field is surrounded by 10 fields. Right? And instead of describing the borders of all the fields, he says, I'm selling you field number Aleph. Leaves out field. I'm selling you the field that's next to field number Aleph, but then he skips Bays, and then he says it's next to Gimel, skips Dalit, then Hey, then meaning he's describing every other neighbor. Right? Okay, using Aaron Kaplan. Aaron Kaplan says he has 4 or 5 neighbors. So when he's describing what he wants to sell from his house, he ends up saying every other neighbor, the boundary on every other neighbor. So what does he mean there? Does he mean to only sell those parts of the fields and that's it? So Gemara says, Teiku, we don't know. All right. So then what are we pasking with that? All right, when you have a Teiku, what are you going to paskin? Normally, Teiku, if it's a suffix, the Rabbanan is Lakula, suffix, the Rice is Lachumra. In Mamanus, it's a Mitzvah All right. So I don't know exactly how somebody goes around proving what the seller meant. But that's what you have to say. Okay, continuing with this. He told the guy, he described for the guy, my property that's on the north, and then the south, and the east, but he leaves out west. He just didn't describe the western side. Right? But he didn't define it. So Amarav, so why didn't he define that boundary? So we have 3-way machlokes is exactly why he didn't define that boundary. Amarav, Kana Hakol Chutz Mimeitza Revi. Must be that the reason why he didn't describe it is because he wasn't selling him that corner, that side of the field. Now, what does that mean? He wasn't selling him that side of the field. He's got to be selling him something, right? So it means that he's selling him up until the amount of area that it takes to plow that particular area, right? So Kana Hakol Chutz Mimeitza Revi. He's kind of the whole field, except he has to take a step back of a one plow's width of on that fourth side. Shmuel says, no, he even gets the fourth side. Right? But he just figured, why should I write it down? It's a waste of ink and a waste of paper and a waste of time. Obviously, if I describe 3 sides, then he gets to fill in that entire 3 sides. I mean, we have to understand that point in order to understand the rest of Gemara. I mean, I think it's relatively simple. How do you tell a guy that he's buying a land that's surrounded on the bottom and on both sides? Makes like a U, right? There's no reason to describe the fourth side because obviously he gets to fill up the field of that area. At least that's the Gemara. That's the Lachar, what the Gemara is saying according to Shmuel. Rav says no. The reason why he didn't describe that fourth side is because you're gonna have to take away a little bit from that fourth side. That's why he meant that. Shmuel says no. He just didn't feel a need to write it. Ravasi is the most strict. What he said is he only allows him, he's not selling him the entire area that's in these boundaries. He's only selling him the like an outline. I guess that would be. He meant to sell him an outline of three areas and nothing on the fourth. I have no idea what anybody would do with this. What are you doing with this? You're getting one plow's worth of width going down each side and then one on the bottom, and that's it. Nothing on the top. Okay. Anyway, so the Gemara says, Savala Karav. Rav Asi holds like Rav, the Amar Shiure Shire, who holds that the guy is leaving it over. But the Shire, the Meitza, Shire Nami Bekulei. And when he's leaving out one boundary, then he's leaving out the whole thing. Meaning, so Rav basically was saying that the last Shita goes like Rav. He just, meaning that Rav, again, Rav's Shita was that if he left out one boundary, it must be that there was a reason for that. He didn't mean to sell everything. He's subtracting a little bit, right? And the reason why he left it out is again to subtract. And Rav Asi says the same thing, except he says he meant to subtract a lot more. Rav only said he's subtracting that a little bit from that fourth side. Rav Asi says no, he means to just give the outline and that's it. Amar Rav, and Rav said, the halacha is kana hakol chutz mimeitza ravi. He's kind of everything except for that fourth side. Right? That's now. Why didn't he say the halacha is like Rav? So we just had it in Megillah in the morning, right? Rabbi, we just had this. Why don't you just say the halacha is like him? Gemara doesn't ask that over here. Why don't you just say the halacha is like Rav? Because he's adding on. He's adding on to the psak. He's not passing like Rav straight across the board. He's adding a few caveats. So again, Amar Rav, except he's kind of everything except for that fourth boundary. But this is only if it's not absorbed. But if it is absorbed, then it's kind of. Now, what does it mean absorbed? So that you have the Rashi to the left, the second diagram of the Rashi, where muvla means that the fourth side that he didn't describe is surrounded by the sides, the side boundaries. Right? That's muvla. Loy muvla means that fourth boundary actually goes from one end to the other end. All right. I hate to say a football mushel, but when you have to hit the end zone, all you got to do, there's a big fat line on the end zone. All you got to do is hit the first part of the line. You don't have to get past, as far as I know, unless they change the rules. You only have to hit the edge of that line. That's it. You don't have to get the entire line. Right? So here, muvla means that line that he didn't describe is actually inside the boundaries, the side boundaries. The loy muvla means that line is outside the boundaries, which in a football field, the lines are outside the boundaries. I mean, the end zone is not within, there's 100 yards in between lines. Am I making any sort of sense here? Meaning, a football field is 100 yards, right? That line to the end zone starts after 100 yards. It's not, meaning, let's say that line was a foot. That line is not inside the 100 yards. It's outside the 100 yards. So this fourth line that this seller said, he didn't describe this fourth line. If it's outside the other boundary, then it doesn't count. But if it's within the walls of the other boundary, which again is not like a football field, then since it's with that fourth wall is within the boundaries, then he is kainet. Then the guy would be kainet. That's one caveat. And even if it's not within the side boundaries, that we only said that's only where there's trees, there's palm trees there, or it can produce 9 kavin worth of vegetables. Then it's considered something substantial. right? Meaning if there's a whole row of trees there, meaning if it's just barren land, why would the guy not want to sell it? But if it's not barren land and it has enough to produce 9 kavim, so that's substantial. So you could hear the seller saying, I'm selling you the whole field except for that row. That row is very valuable to me, so I'm not selling it. Right? If there's no trees there, there's no palm trees there, date trees, and there's no 9 kavim, then he's kind of. Right? So again, he's saying the Allah is like Rav, that there was a reason why he didn't describe the 4th side. But he's saying the Allah is only like Rav if that 4th side is actually sticking out. It's not within the side boundaries, and if that 4th side has nothing valuable to it. But if that 4th side has something valuable to it, then he taka meant it for a good reason. So Gemara says, Mechlal t'chib muvla. We can learn from this that when it's muvla, meaning when it's absorbed, when that boundary, that 4th boundary, is within the side boundaries, even though there's something substantial there, it's still kind of. Right? Meaning, we're trying to figure out what is the das of the seller. So the more things that you could stack up why the seller wouldn't want to sell it, then that makes it tilts it more in the direction of paskening like the seller. So we're saying if it's not absorbed in the walls, so that's a reason why he wouldn't want to sell it, because it's not really part of that field. And if it's actually has some valuable growth there, then you can understand it. But the Gemara is saying, but if you only have one or the other, then that wouldn't be enough reason for the seller to not sell it, and therefore it goes to the buyer. Now the Gemara says the exact same Gemara, but just, well, it's a little stira, but it's the exact Gemara, but the opposite. The halacha is you're kind of everything, even the 4th wall, not like Rav, like Shmuel. But that's only when it's, like we said, where that 4th boundary is within the sides of the other boundaries. But if it's not there, then he's not kind. And even when we said mivla, we only said it when it's not going, there's no trees there, and there's no tishakavin, or there's no tishakavin, meaning it's not producing enough. But if there's a richva dedikla, and there's 9 kavin, then his taka will not be kaina, because then we see that there seems to be a good reason why he is not selling it. So then the Gemara says, Mechlal, that when that boundary is not within the walls, the side boundaries, even if there's nothing there, even if there's no trees there, and there's no tishakavin there, he's not kind of. Right? Exact same Gemara, just one was saying that he is kind of, one saying not kind of, but the same rules apply. Fine. So the Gemara says, Shamina mitavayu. We hear from mitavayu lishni the Rava. We hear from both versions of Rava that nobody leaves over a field. Meaning, when a person is selling a field, when the seller is selling the field, he doesn't mean to leave over anything. That's one thing. Shamina nami dehecha de mivla. That where that 4th boundary that he didn't describe is within the side boundaries, and there's nothing valuable about that 4th side, meaning there are no trees there, or it's not making tishakavim kana, then he's kind it also, because we have no reason to believe that the guy wouldn't sell it. Loy mavla, and if that 4th side is not the ikale richva dedikla v'avites kavin, and there's trees there, like kana, then for sure the guy's not kind, because there's enough reason for us to believe why the seller wouldn't want to sell it, right? It's not absorbed in the two boundaries on the side, and it's producing, so we could hear why he doesn't want it. But mivla v'ika aleh, but let's say it's mivla, meaning it's within the 2 boundaries, and there's trees growing there, loy mavla, the lekale, or if it's not absorbed and there's nothing there, that we don't know. Meaning if you have one of each, we don't know. If you have both, meaning it's not absorbed, if you say it's not absorbed and there's nothing growing there, so then there's no reason to believe that he's not selling it. If it's absorbed and there's stuff growing there, there's very good reason to believe why he's not selling it. The only question is you have one of each. Then what's the din? So itmar la lahaigisa, itmar la lahaigisa. Some learned it this way, some learned it that way. Shuda the daini, which we've had before. Shuda daini means flip a coin, going with the football muscle. Shuda the daini, it's up to the dayana, meaning hear each other's sides and then come up with your own pshat. And that's it. Meaning, because again, it's half-half. The two things that are issues here is it muvla, is it not muvla, and is there something growing there to make us believe that he doesn't want to sell it. So if you have both, so then it either works for the advantage of the seller, and if you don't have both, it works to the advantage of the buyer. But if you have half and half, then we have an issue. Right? So that's it. Okay. Yeah, we'll stop over here.